Hello and welcome to another video from TheSavageTrout on YouTube, and it is my Week 9 Premier League weekly roundup, and we'll only have 9 games in this one just because I sort of want to record it now before the Swansea-Stoke game. I don't really think Swansea-Stoke is going to be too amazing. I mean, it might be high scoring, both teams are good at attacking, so Stoke less so at defending, so it'll be an interesting game for sure, but there's plenty of other talking points over the weekend, and we'll start obviously with a 12:45 game with Jurgen Klopp taking his first game this for Liverpool this season, and I actually did an article on him as well as Sam Allardyce just about an hour before, pretty much half. I posted it on my blog about half time, and yeah, so that's quite interesting. Thought really Klopp at Liverpool. I wasn't really expecting it to happen, but it did, and he's definitely got a task on his hands. Because if you watch this game, they really didn't offer much. It wasn't a great game. I was expecting Spurs to do a bit better, but they just seemed to not quite click in this game. I mean, they had a few chances, but the game was very, very stop-start. A lot of giveaways of the ball. Neither side really could get a control of the game. I guess at various points Spurs did, but they weren't great in the first half. Dele Alli and Dembele were struggling to get a control of the midfield. They did a bit in the second half. That's when Spurs sort of came for a bit, but really the best chance was Harry Kane's one-on-one with the keeper, which was saved. Follow-up hit by Dele Alli. Looked like he was going to put it into the back of the net, but maybe the inexperience coming in, he hit it, and Saka was able to block it before it could go in. So, yeah, I mean, I think Klopp will obviously be happy with the two. He'll be happy to have kept a clean sheet, and a point away against Spurs isn't too bad considering their form recently, but he needs to really win the Europa League game in midweek and then try to push on from there with Liverpool. But yeah, Origi was really on scraps in this game and didn't really offer much himself either, so there's a lot to work on for Liverpool, especially with all these injuries. Moving on to Everton versus Manchester United, and I have to say I am pleasantly surprised, because I had the thought process that we were going to do terrible in this game. We're probably going to lose, potentially by 2 or more goals, just because of our track record against Everton. I was starting to think they were sort of becoming the new West Ham for us. I think they might be Swansea now. I mean, it was West Ham who always beat us. We sort of overcame that, and then it sort of started to become Everton and Swansea now. Luckily, we've overcome this Everton hurdle, and hopefully we can continue to do that in the future, because they've always screwed us over in the past. Really, the big game changers for us here were Herrera coming back into the side, Depay being completely dropped, so there's certainly an interesting one there, and I can't disagree with it, to be honest. I mean, Depay, you still get excited when he's on the ball, but he just needs to pass the ball more and stop just... He needs to run at players. He needs to do basically what Martial was doing in the whole game, just causing all kinds of problems. And also, Martial did very well as his defensive duties as well. He really restricted Coleman and gave him hell, which sort of nullified their attack with the fullbacks, which is usually so dangerous for Everton. Schneidlin coming back and was also a big move really as well. I mean, he should have played in the Arsenal game, and it was imperative that he played here, and he did. Smalling was also a beast. I mean, I don't think Jones even needed to really play, because Smalling was just dominating Lukaku, and annoyingly I left him on my fantasy football bench, but Smalling really has been unbelievable since that red card in the derby. I mean, probably the best red card of anyone's career, because it's completely changed him. I think he does need a full-time partner, obviously, though. I mean, Jones, he's made of glass. Sometimes I think the Smalling-Jones combination is where we should go, and I mean, Jones is sometimes error-prone, but as I said, he's made of glass, so it's probably going to be Smalling and Jones together in the next few games before Jones inevitably gets injured and we have to play Blind at centre-back again, which is where we might start having problems depending on the opposition. Rooney also scored, although I'm not going to be a fool here and say, oh, he's completely back, because his performance wasn't great again. He really does bog us down a lot of the times, and I do think we need to drop Rooney. I mean, the Depay and Rooney, they've sort of been the letdowns this year for us so far, apart from a few goals in the Champions League, really, and a couple in the league. But really, I think it could work wonders if we have Schweinsteiger, Schneiderlin, Herrera, and then Mata and maybe Depay or Young on the other wing with Martial up front, or two out-and-out wingers, and then just Herrera coming in for Schweinsteiger with Mata in the middle if we wanted to sort of switch it up a bit, maybe against a weaker opposition, if there is such a thing in the Premier League. So yeah, that was that really. De Gea made some crucial saves as well, and it was a great bounce back from the team. And Van Gaal has been very good in the last couple of weeks, I would say. I mean, he didn't get his tactics right at all against Arsenal, but he was humble for once, and came out and admitted his mistakes, said the team were poor, unlike a certain Mourinho, and he clearly got the troops fired up for this game, brought in Herrera, which again sort of shows he's trying to correct the error of his ways in the past, and hopefully he can continue making these selections. Rojo was also good for us. Anyway, Everton will probably bounce back. I think this was just a bad day at the office for them. Moving on to Manchester City, Bournemouth. Sadly, Man City were facing Bournemouth, who are probably the best fixture to have at this stage in their season, considering the amount of injuries that they've collected over the past few weeks. And they're probably quite low on morale, and despite not having Silva and Aguero, they still completely tore Bournemouth to bits. I do worry with Bournemouth, they're just getting stretched late on and destroyed. Distan and their other defender, who his name just completely eludes me now, Cook. There we go, it's Cook. They just looked completely out of it, and you could just tell when Man City were coming forward that there's going to be trouble a lot of times. Sterling finally hit the ground running, getting a hat-trick. Some good finishing. He also still had his typical terrible finishes. Somehow Navas missed a glorious chance right before one of his goals. But Navas just showing how poor he is in the box. I think Man City might have struggled against better opposition here with this team that they had, but that they had enough in this game to easily blow away Bournemouth. And also the keeper, Boruc, got injured in the warm-up, which didn't help Bournemouth at all. And then another keeper mistake in this game for one of Bonnie's goals, or Boney's goals. And really, I do fear for Bournemouth. I said at the start of the season they'd get relegated. I don't quite think they'd get relegated in these circumstances, but the injuries just make it even worse for them. Moving on to not Watford Arsenal, that's the one they have down, but it's actually moving on to Crystal Palace West Ham. Two very solid sides who a lot of people have tipped to potentially push for Europe this year, and really it was a pretty even game up until Gale decided to stupidly get sent off. I mean, he won them a penalty earlier, he was doing everything right in the first half, but then he got 2 yellows in the space of 11 minutes. Complete stupidity, you can't have any complaints. Pardew still had found a way to complain about it, I don't know how, but that really killed them. They tried to hang on, but it was just very difficult for them in the end, and they got that goal late on West Ham. Carroll with the knockdown, and then it was just flicked on by Jelavic for Lanzini to put it into the net, sinking Crystal Palace, and then Payet was a lovely little dink to finish the game off 3-1 in quite a reminiscent fashion of the Norwich Crystal Palace game, really. Moses once again getting involved. I think Chelsea should probably call him back from his loan at this rate, considering his performance. I mean, him and Willian on the wings could be very dangerous compared to the struggle that Pedro and Hazard seem to be going through at the moment. So yeah, it was a decent game here. Moving on to another good game, Southampton versus Leicester. And once again, two sides that will probably be up there this season, Southampton and Leicester. And Leicester once again came back from an untenable position, really, you would have thought. 2-0 down to a strong Southampton side away from home, who have really been kicking on recently. and I don't know how they managed it, but Vardy was able to get 2 goals, pulling them out of the crap. One of them, or the equaliser, coming very, very late on. To be fair, it was maybe justified though. Van Dijk's second goal, I'm pretty sure he was offside for that. But I have to say about Fonte and Van Dijk at that centre-back pairing, it is a rock-solid partnership, and it's great for Fonte now that he's actually got a proper partner other than papering over the cracks of Dejan Lovren. That really has worked out for Southampton once again, but it always seems to happen really. They always solve their best players and they get crap, and then they buy better ones. Really though, it was Mahrez and Dyer that really changed the game. The second half substitutions from Ranieri, big substitutions there, and they really did change the game, especially Dyer putting it into the box for Vardy's first goal. And they couldn't really live with Leicester, as many teams haven't been able to. The only fear I have for Leicester is when the goals maybe start drying up, maybe Vardy getting injured. That's when I worry for them, and I can see them going for a bit of a barren run where they struggle. Maybe sort of in the reverse order of last season potentially. Moving on to Chelsea Villa, 2 very interesting managers going at it here, and teams that have both been struggling this season. Wasn't really a classic. Villa pretty much gifted Chelsea the win here with 2 very bad goals on the defensive front for them. Guzan's distribution was terrible, and the defence really weren't composed. They seemed all over the place. The defence doesn't seem in tune with each other. The first goal was pretty horrendous. Guzan, for some reason, just decided he wants to pass it straight to Lescott when there's a lot of danger. Lescott was a horrendous touch, allowing Willian to come through and then basically just square it to Costa, for Costa to get his goal back from his ban. And yeah, that was pretty much the story of the game. Then the second goal, you had the deflection from Hutton as Costa looked like was trying to square it to someone else, but it was able to go in over the top of Guzan, and a pretty disastrous day for Villa once again. And there wasn't really much protection for the defence as well. I don't really see where the protection for the defence is for Villa. It just seems like they've got Lescott and Richards sort of running around like headless chickens trying to do everything, and it's really not working for them. And I think it's almost inevitable that Sherwood's going to get sacked. Who comes in from, I don't know. Maybe it'll be Rodgers, maybe it'll be Moyes, but I think they have to sack Sherwood ASAP. I hope they don't, because it's great entertainment watching this Villa side playing his interviews, but he's being really found out now. And I did say at the start of the season I thought he'd get relegated, and if they don't get rid of Sherwood, I think they will do. Moving on to West Brom Sunderland, this was the game you were expecting. A scrappy goal wins it. Quite a bit of debate over whether it should have been given. People say there was a foul on Pantilimon, and then he also had 2 hands on the ball. It's quite controversial one. It seems like a lot of the strikers seem to be striker pundits seem to be saying that it should have been given, and I sort of agree. So I think in that situation, if you're the striker, it'd be harsh to give it against you, but then you also feel hard done by if you're the goalkeeper. It's quite a 50-50 one, right? I would have given the goal. I mean, Berahino, he's not exactly massive compared to Pantilimon. I think the second was probably more controversial, whether he kicked it out of his hands, but I'm not quite sure whether he properly had 2 hands on the ball or not. It's a difficult one to tell. 0-0 probably would have been fair in this game though, but Pulis, as always, finds a way to win. And really, the fight was the best part of the game at the end, because McLean was being a bit of a dick, but there's nothing new there. Anyway, moving on to the 5:30 game between Watford and Arsenal. Arsenal doing their typical Arsenal impression, doing their, I don't know what the hell I'm going on about there. But yeah, not exact. Trying to find their way through in the first half, couldn't. But then they just blew Watford away in the second half with 3 goals. Sanchez on fire again, banging them in. I do fear for Watford a bit now. They did have a good start to the season, but they seem a bit too predictable and structured. I saw something on a forum with some Watford fan predicting exactly what would happen, and that's pretty much exactly what happened in the game. They seem to just punt it up to Deeney and Igalo, and then just sort of hope that those two can sort of work it out between themselves. They need more help, I think. And they've got a wealth of other attacking options on the bench, like Diamante and Gerrarda, I think it is. That they should really deploy them more. And if they start doing that, then they could start giving teams a lot more problems. 1 goal, I think, at home they've had this season. That's a very worrying statistic. And they need to start getting going. They're good defensively, and they will win games against teams around them. But they really do need to start banging them in up front, because they've got the players to do it as well. Anyway, moving on to the only Sunday game, and that was Newcastle versus Norwich. Wasn't quite expecting this result, I have to say. Well, to be fair, I sort of was, but more in the grand scheme of things, because I do know that Norwich's defence is so poor. They should have signed at least a centre back in the summer. Then they could have put Russell Martin at right back, and then they could have got that donkey Stephen Whittaker out of the team. But instead, they decided that they wouldn't do that, and then they got Russell Martin and Stephen Whittaker playing at centre back and right back. I mean, it's debatable whether Russell Martin is Premier League quality at right back, but when you play him at centre back, he's definitely not Premier League quality. Stephen Whittaker, I'm not even sure if he's Championship quality. He's really not good, and pretty much all of Newcastle's goals came from those two, and just their poor positional awareness and poor marking, really. And just so many times getting exposed there. Basson was forward a few times. Olsen was the only bright spark in the defence, really, but that was only because both of the goals pretty much came from him for Norwich down that left-hand side. But then that's probably more down to Newcastle's poor defending as well. Really, though, Wijnaldum had a great game, but that's exactly what happens when you leave him too much room. And fantastic final 4th goal. And he really did rip Norwich to shreds. But yeah, Norwich, they really need to get their act together, because the defence has been shocking this season. They've been conceding a lot of goals, and they really haven't faced many of the big guns. Their next away game is against Manchester City, and they conceded 6 to Newcastle. That could be double figures if they don't get their act together, so they need to do it. They also need Malumbu back sooner rather than later. And for some reason, Neil decided he was going to take Tete off as well, who was pretty much the only guy protecting the defence, which was a suicidal move, and it showed. So thank you for watching, guys, and until next time, goodbye. That was quite a quick ending. But anyway, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.